Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Happy Friday night. Tonight, let's talk about retaliation and more.
I was raised in housing. I don't think you were.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Happy Friday evening. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a few things, but I mainly want to speak about retaliation. And I know I haven't been on for a while, but I've been doing some stuff. But I definitely want to get into a few things here, but I do want to talk about retaliation and the corruption here in the city of Yonkers, right? Things that I've been dealing with, my story. I want to talk about my wife, a little bit of an update on her situation, but also I want to talk about the mayor of Mount Vernon first. This woman here is the former commissioner of the zoning board in the city of Mount Vernon. Interesting screenshot I was sent. She writes, I resigned after learning Sean Patterson Howard, the mayor, was handed her head for lying. When she claimed she was not lying, a person quickly said, says Darden was there. Darden. So in her hurt, anger, and bitterness, I know there will be nothing but retaliation on her part. Now she goes on to write this letter here, resigning from her position. Effective immediately, I'm resigning from my position as Commissioner of Mount Vernon Zoning Board of Appeals. Here are the reasons for my resignation. The Zoning Board of Appeals in the city of Mount Vernon lacks effectiveness. Mayor Sean Patterson Howard allowed verbal assaults on myself and others by another board member with no action taken upon my complaint. Sounds very much like Tasha Diaz here in the city of Yonkers. Mayor Sean Patterson Howard threatened board members with an illegal refusal to provide proper compensation. In the summer of 2023, I recorded a conversation where another zoning board member attempted to manipulate and bribe me on behalf of the mayor. Now, those are pretty explosive allegations. And yet we don't hear much about it. This is more of the corruption that's happening here in the city of Yonkers, specifically within the zoning boards throughout Westchester. I spoke about that here in the city of Yonkers, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the commissioner, Wilson Kimball, who's also the president of Municipal Housing Authority of the city of Yonkers, who's also the president of Mulford Corporation, another affordable housing agency that was created to assist Macy. And all they seem to be doing is allowing for zoning changes to occur so that the developers can continue to build more and more, higher and higher, blocking views, blocking the sun, and making it more crowded and congested here in the city of Yonkers. And residents are fighting this at this very moment over on North Broadway, and folks on D Haven over there, where they are looking to change the zoning laws again, the zoning codes for that area, for 900 North Broadway, a property owned by a family member of Assemblyman Nader Sage. And I'm hearing, and these are unconfirmed, but people are telling me that Sam Borelli, the former building department commissioner, may be a consultant on that property or on that whole project. And essentially, 900 North Broadway is a strip of land near Untermeyer Park where they want to build low-density housing, an apartment complex or an apartment building, basically, creating more traffic for the North Broadway corridor. Every way out of Yonkers is just becoming extremely crowded and difficult to get out. And so many residents there don't want it, but it's being pushed by powerful people, people like Sage, Nader Sage, Assemblyman, people like Zahi Jerris, I'm hearing. campaign manager extraordinaire for Tasha Diaz and others, very powerful political figure here in Yonkers and Westchester. And Sam Borelli, former building department commissioner, is also involved. And so that's a big problem. And this is something that many folks are not aware of, but it's what's impacting the city. Zoning changes. Before they can build these developments, they have to get zoning changes. And they've been getting them with no problem. Zoning Board of Appeals has been taken over here in the city of Yonkers, and now it appears that it has been taken over in Mount Vernon as well. And if you don't remember or I'm not familiar with the mayor of Mount Vernon, she was the former executive director of the YMCA here in Yonkers before becoming elected to mayor of Mount Vernon. She was, in my opinion and opinion of others, very close to political figures here, powerful political people here in Yonkers. And they believe that she is working on their behalf just over there in Mount Vernon. And so that's what it appears here. According to this former zoning board commissioner in Mount Vernon, she recorded another board member attempting to bribe her on behalf of the mayor. That's crazy. I hear the FBI is actually in Mount Vernon on some other things. Maybe they're working their way through the county, right? Because that's happening here. And I talked about zoning board members who were, unbeknownst to them, forced off the zoning board because they would not go along with approving all these zoning changes. They didn't believe many of the developments that were going up were beneficial to the community. And so they got rid of them without even letting them know. They just got rid of them. 3 months later, they get a letter in the mail saying you're gone, right? And so that's more corruption. That's corruption. So just again here, she says it here in case you couldn't see it. During my tenure, I managed projects impartially despite interference from the mayor. Completed all training, provided necessary documents, and attended meetings, surpassing Commissioner Leslie Zamore and former Commissioner Henry Soley. Lastly, the mayor's response, similar to the former president Donald Trump's, involves retaliating, attacking, and mistreating those who do not agree with her or criticize her leadership. Sounds like Yonkers. This led to my choice to resign upon discovering details of the meetings on February 6, 2024, where I was identified as a witness to inappropriate behavior by Patterson Howard. So Mount Vernon, like Yonkers, is going through its own bout with corruption, but it's closely linked to the city of Yonkers because the players are the same. In fact, Mayor Howard has received funding from many developers that also have funded many elected officials here in Yonkers and are doing developments here in Yonkers. And so it's the same individuals who are controlling our elected officials. And that is what I have been speaking about here in Basement Politics. That has gotten me in some trouble, right? But before I get into that, let's talk about more retaliation. Corazon Pineda's Isaac is getting support from individuals. Now, I said this guy was a resident, but he's actually not a resident. He's running for a Congress, the 16th Congressional District, and he was attending a community meeting over, I believe, at the 3rd Precinct where Corazon Pineda Isaac was, and he stood up to say that he supported her and that he had written a letter to Mayor Mike Spano in regards to the threats that she received from Tasha Diaz. Listen to what he had to say.
I just want to let you know that I wrote to Mike Spano, who doesn't control the city council, indicating that I thought it was very unfair that this was treated as a he said, she said, or she said, type of situation. I think that, and I intend on asking all of the senior officials in Westchester who so far have been silent on this to speak out against the harsh words that were uttered against you. I think Ken Jenkins should. I think George Latimer should. I think Congressman Bowman should. I have. I think it cannot be accepted that a minority woman in this beautiful minority city, and at the same time, all these people are running around supporting, human rights all over the world. And here we have this incident here. And I also wrote to Mike saying that I think your censure or whatever they called it should be erased and gotten rid of. So
I appreciate that.
So he says, you know, they go around talking about human rights all over the world. They talk about anti-bullying in the schools. The Yonkers public schools at one point had told everyone to wear orange in support of anti-bullying. Yet and still, we see bullying from our very own leaders, those who are supposed to be setting an example and protecting people from bullying are doing the bullying themselves. And it has a lot of people in the city of Yonkers very scared, very afraid, because they don't want to get retaliated on like my wife, right? Very recently, my wife was supposed to hear or have been, well, I've been in communication very recently with certain individuals from the city of Yonkers in regards to my wife's job and getting her reinstated like she had been promised to after being terminated essentially for retaliatory reasons. Her termination came because of my podcast. And we all know this, right? Today I was informed that although the mayor and the board of trustees want my wife reinstated, the interim superintendent, Dr. Rodriguez, is refusing to put her back to work. So I'm being told that the interim superintendent is the one that's refusing this. The board of trustees want her back. The mayor has even made phone calls to get her back on. But for some reason, the interim superintendent is refusing. According to the info relayed to me by City Hall, Dr. Rodriguez refuses to reinstate my wife because there are allegedly a group of staff members that wrote letters to the superintendent saying my wife causes problems. But that's news because she never dealt with any issue like that while at work. So although she was promised to be reinstated back in December, the Board of Ed has yet to reinstate my wife. There is no doubt my wife was fired because of my podcast. When they realized that they couldn't prevent me from saying things that needed to be said, they went after my wife. They tried to shut me down. But these things needed to be said, and the people of Yonkers deserve transparency. They deserve to be informed. At first, they were very accommodating, placing my wife at YMA, where in her first year, she took it upon herself and took on the task of doing the first student YMA talent show, which was very successful. Very successful. The kids were thrilled, and it drew over 500 parents and raised over $3,000 for the students. Very successful. My wife took that on. No additional pay for that, but she did give her time. Not only did they place her in YMA at the very beginning for our first year, they even offered to move my kids over to YMA, which they did with ease. How many parents have tried to get their kids moved to another school, especially one that they feel may be a better school, and have had trouble? But for some reason, hey, they offered it. Sure, my wife said it makes it easier when coming home, right? While I appreciated what was done, I still continued my podcast for the most part because there was a need for a platform that brought Yonkers residents the information with honesty and integrity. Just before my wife was hired, we were told by several people, and I'm going to go back a little bit before she was hired. We were told by several people that we would be offered jobs. This was told to us. So when New York City began forcing their DOE, Department of Education employees to be vaccinated, my wife looked for a job here in the school district in Yonkers and applied for an assistant principal position. And then she got the offer from Dr. Casada himself. Dr. Casada, who I have nothing bad to say about, right, even extended my wife the courtesy of going past the 2-week deadline she had in order to turn in or to have the state acknowledge that she had her certifications in, right? They have to go on their teach account to see what they have completed, what certifications they have. So they have to look up there to see if it's in. However, because of the pandemic, it was taking longer than usual for it to show up. And they even extended 2 weeks, allowing it to come in. And then Dr. Casada himself called her up and said, you have the job. So we knew that when on the second attempt to fire her, because they fired her tried to more than once, they were using the fact that her certification had expired as a reason to get it done when they couldn't do it the previous year, right? This time they weren't extending any courtesies when it came, when they could have allowed her to remain on the job, contingent on she being recertified, which is something that happens all the time. And in fact, normally the Board of Education would notify a staff member that their certification is about to expire and that they have X amount of time to renew it. But they didn't do that to my wife. They waited for it to expire, not letting her know, right? And they told her that if you get your certification, you would be brought back on. She was promised many times. She was promised to get her career back. But now it's February, and now allegedly it's Dr. Rodriguez who does not want my wife back. So the first attempt was last year when she worked at Roosevelt. She was doing very great there. She loved it because it was high school students and she enjoys working with high school students, right? And at Roosevelt, my wife volunteered her time once again to create a cheerleading squad. She would stay after work and she would do the practices on Saturdays, not getting paid extra, just to get this cheerleading squad going because it was a need for a cheerleading squad. And there were a lot of girls that were into it. So it was benefiting the students, right? She even got another staff member involved, a staff member who was a cheerleader in college. And she was a great addition to the whole program that my wife had created because they really then got it going and started doing a lot of different routines, which are awesome. Unfortunately, that staff member too is no longer with the Yonkers Public Schools. At first, she was praised for it. She even created the program with students where they would make sandwiches. So my wife had an idea to create a community service program, right? So kids can learn to give back to the community. And so we would, out of our own pocket, buy cold cuts and bread and potato chips. And then we would have the students in Roosevelt who were in the special education program create the lunches, which it was something that they got to do together. They got to, learn how to work, in systematic fashion. They even started doing it with the Gen Ed kids. They started to join in. And because of it, they were building a relationship between the special ed students, education students, and the general education students. It was an amazing thing. And then we would go out and deliver it to the homeless people. A few times, some of the students joined me down in Getty Square, and I went out with them and we gave it out to people who were in need. It was a great program. Didn't cost the school anything extra because we weren't asking for money, nor did they have to provide anything for us. But that was shut down, right? But it was a great program, again, teaching kids the value of community service. So why would they shut it down? That was all done to spite me because I was speaking out on the corruption, specifically in the building department, as they were giving me hell getting a new C of O. Now, if you've been paying attention, you'll see that I wasn't the only individual that was getting hell from the building department. Very recently, Sam Dahl filed complaints with the Yonkers Inspector General regarding the corruption in the building department, validating what I and others have been saying about the building department. However, that shouldn't result in my wife being targeted and terminated, right? She began to, going back to my wife, back at Roosevelt, right? She began to feel, toward the end, certain energy from certain people. People stopped talking to her, right? And then there was an incident at one point where my wife wrote a pass. My wife was an assistant principal. She wrote a pass for a student to go to the school store. When the student got there, the teacher that was in the school store told her that Miss Vasquez's pass were no longer valid. An assistant principal, her passes are no longer valid according to an assistant teacher. So she sent the student back without allowing her to purchase anything from the school store. The student then went back to my wife and told her exactly what the teacher had said. That teacher happened to be John Cater's wife. And so when I was told that, I Found it to be very strange. Why didn't John tell me that something was going on? Right? Why would she tell a student that my wife's passes were no longer valid unless she knew about the fact that they were colluding to try to fire her? So this bothered me because it was the wife of John Cater, a man that I had leaned on to guide me through politics as he was experienced, and I saw what his own cousin was doing to him, as well as actually Mike Cater was doing to him and his brother, Mike Cater, during the 2021 elections. So why would his wife say that and he not tell me what was going on when I would let him know about things that were being said about him and or his family? People would email me, people pretending to be sources, giving me information on the Cater family. And instead of going on my podcast and repeating it, I would bring it to their attention. But yet that wasn't reciprocated. So that upset me. And also because he knows the people that are targeting me or that were targeting my wife. He always would tell me, bang Zahi Juris. Everyone hates him. Yet when Zahi was pulling strings along with others to get my wife fired, John was silent. But I don't blame John. But that's when I realized that all of them are playing a game because they are all after the money and power. While I cared about doing what's right, their focus was advancing politically. When I asked John about it, he said he doesn't speak to his wife about work. He didn't ask her as a favor like many times that I did for him, right? Should have asked her, what's going on with Freddie's wife? This is what's being said. Do you know something's up? I would like to put him on. I mean, he has had our back. And how long did Pete try, John's brother, try to get me, to get him and Vinny to have a meeting? How many times? That was his whole goal, I believe, because once that meeting happened, he no longer was providing me with information. And then there you go. They get new businesses. John has no problem with his garage over on Sawmill. His brother Pete opens up a new business with no problem, right? No warning about the attempt to fire my wife from John or his wife, right? No warning. After I supported the Caters and called out what was wrong and what they were doing to his brother, Mike Cater, the way they were treating his family and what they were saying to him about his wife, right? My wife's last year, they attempted to fire my wife in last year, I should say, when she was at Roosevelt, by using an evaluation where it was written to make her look bad. It was written with blatant lies in it. It's what saved her from being fired then was that my wife had a copy of an evaluation that she was given early on in the year. And in that evaluation, it was great. It spoke highly of her. And it made specific points about what was great about her. And in the second evaluation toward the end of the year, they completely reversed what they, had said, saying she did this great. Now she didn't do that great. She wasn't even around. Many different lies. And so that's what saved her, because then I called up some people. I said, yo, you're going to try and fire my wife with this BS evaluation when it's obviously full of lies. If you just look at the first evaluation, the man's contradicting himself. It's clear as day. So why did the principal praise my wife, love my wife, and then all of a sudden have issue with her? Say she was this horrible employee, right? Again, fortunately, my wife had copies and showed the lies. So instead of disciplining the principal for lying in his evaluation, they simply moved my wife to another school. I spoke with Mr. Vinny Spano, who said he fought for me. There were people telling him that they'd had her dead to rights. That's what he says. And these people were all excited about it because they thought that with that evaluation, they had her dead to rights, as Vinny Spano told me. But they didn't, because had they fired her for that, that could have really been a real lawsuit. All this while I'm being attacked by Brian Harrod and Zahi's son, Frankie, on the Yonkers Newswire, because again, of my podcast, and because I speak out, and because I talk about council members like Tasha Diaz and the corruption that's obvious and blatant, and that her goal is simply to enrich herself and her developer backers and not represent the people. So her campaign manager, her political handler, Zahi Jeris, and his son, along with other minions, continue to attack me on their websites while also going after my wife. And John would tell me, he says, that's Zahi attacking you. That's Zahi going after you, right? So I would then go after Zahi on my podcast because they're hurting my business. They're giving me a hard time. They're the building department. They're looking to fire my wife, right? But my goal was not to talk about these things, but simply to talk about politics. Things like Tasha Diaz flip-flopping on the affordable housing vote. And when I talked about that, I would get attacked. And John would say, that's Zahi. And I believe him. Because they don't want Tasha Diaz being exposed that way. And so they continued their attacks. Right? By the way, John, somebody in City Hall told me, and it wasn't Vinny Spano, that Zahi lawsuit is all about trying to get to you. Games are you guys playing here? This is people's lives. People who live here in the city of Yonkers. So to all the people who are family members, because I get some of the Sage family members, I see Rabadis, I see, these individuals come on my page often. I'll see them follow me. Maybe you all don't know the details, right? You don't all know what's going on. Right. And you can just be upset with Freddie and be mad at him and want him to be destroyed. Right. So that's why I'm talking about this. Right. Talking about people using their influence within the city to prevent me from advancing with my business. Right. That's what I'm talking about. And they attack me for it. So what do you expect me to do? I'm going to attack back. Maybe you guys should speak to your family members and friends. Leave the guy alone. Leave his family alone. You should be able to criticize elected officials without worrying if your spouse will lose their job. That is not a democracy. That's tyranny. And so now, although my wife was promised to be back by now, she is being told, or we are being told, about a group of people that are making it their business to see to it that my wife does not get her career back. And that's disheartening. And it's unfortunate because my wife is an asset. But why don't they speak to all the staff members and students that my wife has worked with and come into contact with? I'm sure that those who say great things about her will outnumber the few who seem to have an issue with her. The few that probably spend weekends together, go to events together, and support the same candidates. Those are the few, right? I told my wife I wouldn't be upset and go off on anyone, but I wanted to speak the truth. And to those who may not understand what is the real issue, I see the family members again of people coming on, so I want to speak to you if you don't know, right? This is the issue. It's political. They're coming after my wife, and so I'm going to go and do what I do. I can't imagine, why is it so difficult to get my wife put back on? I mean, I've seen a lot of things happen here in the city of Yonkers that are unbelievable, but they were still done. People have been given jobs with made-up titles. People have been given no-show jobs. People have been given jobs without taking the civil service exam or having any experience whatsoever. But they still manage to get these jobs here in the city because they are politically involved and connected and influential. Like the man that's suing me, Zahi Jeris, the cousin of John Cater. Seda Jeris is his wife. She is the senior special projects coordinator. She was making $130,000 a year, but now she's making $147,000 a year. So why does she get a $17,000, almost $18,000 raise in a year? A job that she is not qualified for, never had experience to do, was given the position before she even took the test. And in fact, according to sources who first informed me of her at this position, failed it twice before she passed it. But I'm sure at the third time, the answers were given to her. Because that's Zahi Jarris's wife. And he helped elected officials get elected. He is the reason why Tasha Diaz is elected. He's helped John Rubo. He's the reason why the city council president is elected. He's the reason why Deanna Robinson and Shanae Williams have been elected. So, of course, they're going to see to it. He's also big reason why Mayor Mike Spano is elected. Don't get it twisted. They may have another consulting company on paper, but he is definitely heavily involved. And so his worth is more important than the people that are destroyed. And so he's allowed to do that. Tasha Diaz is allowed to get away with destroying people's lives because she is a part of their corruption, and she is willing to do what they say and for now keep her mouth shut. For now. And so it's this small group of individuals that belong to the Jordanian community that are politically connected, along with certain other individuals that are not part of the Jordanian community that seem to have this issue. This is Dr. Rabadi's nephew, Joseph Sage. I'm not sure what I've ever done to this man specifically, but he has for 2 years now commented on my life. He goes by Waleed, a puppet that he walks around with for whatever reason. And according to many people who know him well, know the family, are related to them, who I've spoken with, has some mental health issues there. And so I don't want to be mean to someone who's suffering from a mental health condition, but the guy is continually attacking my family. And this is Dr. Rabadi's nephew, prominent man here in the city of Yonkers. So why isn't he put a stop to it? It's disgusting. These are very wealthy people, and still they find the need to have to somehow get a hold of taxpayer money and funnel it into their account.
Like I said,
many of them are related, and many of them are working within the Yonkers public schools. My wife don't stand a chance because they get all of their family members in. Doesn't matter if they have businesses that are very successful, if they have investment in oil, buildings all over the city, they still need to take up city jobs, get taxpayer money. And they say it's for the health insurance. But I've known so many successful businessmen who never needed their wives to work in the schools for the health insurance. They just paid for it. I don't understand that. But maybe it's just greed. Maybe it's just greed. Dr. Rabadi is making well over $200,000 and is only contracted to work for 20 hours a week as the Yonkers Public Schools doctor. He also has his own practice where many city employees go. He is their doctor, including people like Brian Harry. He is on the board of many hospitals and was named the top medical guy at St. John's. Where does he have the time to be the doctor for the school in the city, especially only working 20 hours a week? He has many lucrative investments, including oil money from Anabi Oil, a very successful oil company started by a man who was originally from Yonkers, then moved to California. And now they have gas stations all over the country. Yet and still, he has to pocket that $200,000 in a school that is always in a deficit. It's always being shortchanged. kids don't have proper, sports programs. They don't have proper resources and everything else, supplies, the school conditions. But yet you got so many wealthy individuals working in the schools, getting over $100 and some $1,000, and they ain't doing anything. John's wife wasn't supposed to be in the school store. She was supposed to be in the classroom working. But that's where they allowed him to hang out. Now, I once got an email by a person claiming to be a family member of the Rabatis, and they warned me a month before that they were trying to fire my wife. They told me there were members of the Arabic community who were behind it, and also mentioned information having to do with Dr. Rabati and his political power. Now it could be one of two things. It could be true, it could be false. If it's false, who sent it and why? What's the goal with sending false information like that? They sent a video as well with Dr. Rabati's nephew, who calls himself, again, Waleed the Puppet, and who has been making comments, as you see there, on Brian Harrod's page. He's even reached out to me on Instagram, DMing me with a bunch of weird stuff that I screenshotted because it just didn't seem like he was in his right mind. I asked him about the video that I was sent, which shows him in it and his puppet, as well as a little girl in which the emailer claimed was his daughter that he had with some woman in Aruba. But he wouldn't answer. He just kept telling me about stock picks and other nonsense. It was gibberish. Did he send it? He is in the video with the puppet. The emailer goes on to say that members of the Sage family, were out to get me. If that video got out, the one I just told you about, that Zahi would be in trouble. So either it's true or someone wanted me to leak the video, which was allegedly of Rabati's nephew's daughter with, get this, a Venezuelan woman who had migrated to Aruba, and he met her there while he was attending medical school. So again, why send this if it's not true? Why make up these type of lies? Then they also mentioned the Caters and that they would be throwing me under the bus. And honestly, that's how I felt. The emailer said the Caters would make up with Zahi and even the Spanos, which they are working on, partly thanks to me. They got what they wanted, and although they utilized my podcast and ignorance about the political game, and they utilized my podcast and ignorance about the political game they were playing. John Cater blamed Zahi Jeris and Nick Spano, even had flyers calling them felons and corrupt, which I never passed out for him, though he wanted to. He had no issues with however, he had no issues with his new place on Salt Mill. And his younger brother Pete had no issues opening up the bagel shop right across from Zupa's. John's wife was never harassed at work and never terminated. Was it because they had some kind of leverage that I didn't have? Leverage, like information that Mike Cater has about the Ludlow development, something he referenced in his lawsuit that he has since remained quiet about. I know that's something that was concerning to the Spanos. But why, Mike? And are you going to speak about it some more? Or is that part of the deal to remain quiet? So as usual, nothing here is unusual in Yonkers politics. Everything is a mirage, a game. A few individuals have been playing for decades, and anyone new is merely a puppet, a tool used for that game. Everyone not a made man is disposable, but if you stay quiet, you will slightly benefit compared to the masters of the game. I sometimes wonder what that feels like for those who know and play the game just to survive in Yonkers, keeping silent as injustices occur regularly right before their eyes. Yet they just lower their chin and tiptoe forward. people have said, why would you want your wife in Yonkers? And I agree with them. I totally understand with that. However, it was wrong, and only that innocent people, and only hurt innocent people like my wife and the students who benefited from someone who loved doing what they did every day. Honestly, I agree. Again, why should my wife go back to Yonkers? But my wife was told that she would be reinstated. The decision to fire her was completely up to Yonkers and not the state, like they said. Yes, her certification had expired, but she was allowed to stay on if this district so choose to have her stay on. However, they said no, the state says no, the state says no, but we contacted the state. They sent us information stating that she could still be employed as long as she gets it. So why didn't they give her the opportunity? Because it was an opportunity to strike at Freddie. I could only imagine if all the truth, it's all the truth, because the only truth, what I'm trying to say is I write so fast. I could, what I'm saying has to be the truth, right? That's what I'm trying to say. It has to be the truth. I could only imagine that it is, because only the truth hurts that much. Only the truth would motivate people to go and do something so disgusting as to destroy a woman's career. That's what they did. And they can go to bed at night sleeping just fine, because they don't give two craps about anyone but themselves. But God is good, and one thing's for sure, God has never let us down. I can't imagine this time will be an exception. We are fortunate to have options, but not many people do. And some have been retaliated on and have had their careers taken from them, as well as destroying their lives. One guy in DPW was even suicidal. And if it wasn't because he was threatening to kill himself, they would never have reinstated him. So God is good. And again, we're fortunate to have options on how to move forward, because we're not moving back. I came to realize in life, it's not all about money. That's not what happiness is all about. But for these individuals, that's what it's all about. Money, promotion, title, succeeding, advancing. Look at me. That's why they have to be in these pictures. That's why they have to be seen. They're very vain, and they're very greedy, and they're soulless. They're very empty, shallow. And they need to try to fill that void with material things. And then they look at you and say, look at you, you're not succeeding. But they don't realize that not everyone cares about that. Not everyone is motivated by money. There's a lot more to life than making money. And so I believe that everything happens for a reason. And so I'm fine with whatever decisions they decide, and we'll move forward in the way we need to move forward. Right? And so I speak about that not to try to out John Cater, not to try to be messy, but just to inform people on what's going on with my wife, and the circumstances surrounding it, the individuals that are involved in it, and just how shady things can be, how shady individuals can be. People will pretend to be on your side, but that's only because they need something. They want to use you for leverage somehow. And so again, I was being warned by people that members of the Jordanian community, specifically belonging to certain families, like the Sages, Rabatis, were out to get me. Someone here wrote, she's cursing you out because of your posts, making threats to ruin you. And I don't know if she's a she, but this person is referring to Sarah Sage. She is saying now she will go after your wife too. Sarah Sage is an interesting character, because she appeared out of nowhere on the city roster. She went from making $14,000 a year with some what appeared to be made up title to making $100,000 a year. Had a title, something to the effect of grant writer for DPW. So how does someone get such an advancement in their salary in such a short amount of time? Who is this person and where did they come from? Why is it that they are hired in that position? And why is it that they are out to get me? What did Sarah Sage get upset about? Why would she be out to get my wife? And this is what I was told is a fact by several people. Several people. This is from City Hall insiders telling me this. They heard it themselves. Cursing me out, saying she's going to destroy me. Well, I'll be talking about why soon enough she is out to destroy me or was out to destroy me and may have, again, colluded with the Zahi Jarris's, Tasha Diaz's, and that crew of people. So will my wife get her job back? Is it Dr. Rodriguez who doesn't want my wife? I don't believe that, Dr. Rodriguez. I don't know you. I never had an issue with you. I've only heard nice things about you, Dr. Rodriguez. I have, and I even said that. And besides, you're not going to be there for very long, and I don't blame you for not wanting the position. I'm sure, you are a very smart man and know what that really comes with. So I don't think it's you, Doctor. And I don't think it's you, Lopez, either, because I've heard that Reverend Lopez had an issue with me. Is that true, Reverend Lopez? Because I've never had an issue with you. And I don't think I've ever said anything negative about you. And every time we've seen each other, we always say hi to each other and we shake hands. So again, I don't believe that. But why would they be blaming it on Dr. Rodriguez? Is it really a group of staff members who have written letters to the superintendent? Is that what's going on here? And if it is, who is motivating these individuals to do that? I mean, she was promised her job back by members of the board of trustees, City Hall. I hear the mayor's made phone calls on her behalf because he knows that it's wrong and she should have never been terminated. And so why would Dr. Rodriguez just say, no, I'm not going to hire her back when she's done amazing things? But that's what happens here in Yonkers. It's unfortunate. And so here we are, right? So, it's just what they do is just string. And I never believed that she would actually get her job back. I didn't think so, but that's what someone's promising you. Someone who has the power to get it done, telling you she's going to go right back. So I don't know. What's the deal? Who is it? Find out who it is for me and tell me who it is, right? Who are these individuals? So listen, this could have been over a long time ago, whatever little beast that we had, but certain individuals just can't let it go and they want to continue it. So, so that's how it is. So y'all want to get messy. So let's get messy. So why is it that Sarah Sage, had an issue with me and was out to get my wife? We'll talk about that soon. Also, I'll be talking about real soon some information that I have been getting recently because after all, it's messy season. So let's get messy. But it's some crazy information. Folks, this is going to blow your mind. It's crazy. By the way, I hear certain city council presidents retaliating on someone. Are you having people who get violations? I'm hearing that you are sending or are retaliating against a certain person by having violations be written up to their property. I hear that it's not her fault. That never meant to get out to me. Don't be upset. You upset the wrong person, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. I was hoping to go on vacation, but I can't. I guess you guys want me here for a while. So let's talk about it. Let's get messy, folks, because, y'all don't have no respect. I don't have no respect either. You know, you guys are very spiteful people. You're not nice people. So why should I hold back anymore, right? I'm Freddie Vasquez. Let's talk soon. Take care. You want it out there? You have to get it to me. politicwithfred@gmail.com. That's politicwithfred@gmail.com. I'm talking to a specific person. Someone had reached out to me. You know, I don't want to, I mean, you used a fake name. I want to say it because I want you to know it's you, but you had told me you had some information. You actually asked me to send you my number. I think by the time I saw the email, you know, you were gone. You know, people are afraid. People are afraid. They reach out to me. They're like, if you don't respond within 5 minutes, I'm deleting this email and I'm gone. Folks, you have to allow me some time to respond. If not, you can message me. But I guarantee that if you use a fake email, I definitely won't know who you are. Your identity is safe with me. If you want to call me, reach out to me, all right? But send me an email again to that person. You said you had some information. You wanted my phone number to talk in person. You said you knew where this person got this stuff from, and some other stuff, you know. I want to get that information. So get at me. To the people that got some more pictures, get at me. You know, send them on over. What are you doing holding them onto them? Let's go. Let's get them over to Freddie Vasquez. You know, this is the year. We have to fight hard, right? I told you they were going to come at me. They were going to retaliate. Listen, I was the martyr. So show me some, you know, sympathy here and send me the, you know, everything that you guys got here, because I've sacrificed. I think I've shown you that I'm down for the cause, right? So get at me, send me the photos. You can contact me directly if you feel safer. You know, I'll give you a specific way to contact me that will be even, you know, more safer, secure, you know, if that'll help you feel better. But again, reach out to me, politicwithfred@gmail.com. Give me some time to respond to the emails. I'm not always on my email like that. You know, I know I'm not the only one that does posting on the page. I'm not going to say who else because I don't want them getting sued. But anyway, folks, have a beautiful weekend. And we're about to get very interesting real soon. Enjoy.
Ready, wins. Fatality. Over.
No!